The 1950s in Britain. When you think of that decade, trade unions probably aren't the first thing that pops into your mind. After all, the big stories were the Conservatives' election victories, Suez, and slogans like, "You've never had it so good," but beneath the headlines, 9 million workers were union members, shaping everyday life in ways that still matter. You might assume unions were on the sidelines, but actually the three Conservative Prime Ministers, Churchill, Eden and Macmillan, were keen to keep good relations with trade unions. Churchill even picked Sir Walter Monckton, a popular figure, as Minister of Labour, making sure unions felt heard. After Labour's strong showing in the 1945 and 1950 elections, the Conservatives realised they had to take working people seriously, not just with words, but with real respect. One of the clearest signs of this approach was their refusal to bring back the restrictive 1927 Trade Disputes Act, even when some party members pushed for it. Why? Because union membership was still high and unions were adapting, recruiting actively and searching for ways to modernise in a changing Britain. In 1951, a record 39% of the workforce was in manufacturing. With so many jobs and a shortage of workers, employers started changing conditions to attract women, especially those with kids, back into the workforce. Unions responded with campaigns to recruit women and set up groups so women's voices could shape union policy. While the number of female members didn't rise, unions managed to hold on to their historic high of 25% female membership. And they didn't stop there. Young people were targeted too, with trade union education expanding and new activities, from sports to social events, building a sense of community. White-collar workers also started to pay attention. Inspired by the gains of manual workers, they launched their own ambitious recruiting drives, laying the groundwork for a new wave of union growth in the following decade. Compared to Europe or America, British unions had less political infighting in the 1950s. Cold War tensions faded, and even when global events like the Hungarian Revolution erupted, British unions largely stayed focused on their own priorities. The powerful Transport and General Workers' Union showed that internal politics could shift, with Frank Cousins steering it back to the left, while still keeping the door open to working with Conservative governments, if they treated wages as fairly as profits. But there were challenges. As economic growth slowed at the end of the decade, employers resisted wage increases and the government was caught in the middle. Support business or keep unions happy? When unemployment reared its head in 1956, strikes flared. And despite high-profile battles like the 6-week walkout at Longbridge or the London bus strike, the government generally avoided cracking down hard on unions. Even after a big win against the unions, Prime Minister Macmillan refused to push for harsh new laws. Why? Because at their core, unions were seen as a moderate force, key to how Britain's democracy worked. As the 1960s began, new TUC leader George Woodcock was confident unions would last because they represented their members well and were ready to adapt. So next time you think of the 1950s, remember, unions weren't just bystanders. They were quietly shaping the lives, hopes and futures of millions.